with Horizon. When it happens to older games, it doesn't work because they run on less graphics, and upload speed is much easier because they're older games, not so demanding. But when it comes to the new games, up to speed games, if you're running on an older system, it takes much longer. Plus, the network, even if you have bad network, that also factors in. But for older games, you don't have that problem because they're older games. They weren't intended to be played on PlayStation 4. They were intended to be played on lesser systems. So when you run them on PlayStation 4, it's much easier and you don't have to worry about dropping in frames or anything because they were designed on lesser systems, not systems that have faster download speed or upload speed. Alright, so from past video, I've already said what I said about Margot. But I'll just repeat this just once. You get the item that I'm showing right now, Margot Shackles. You run outside this door. You use the shackles 3 times outside the door before you even come into the boss times. You cast it 3 times. You'll run up to the boss. The boss will be standing here, around where the grace point is. And you stand right next to him, where you're facing him. And then you lock onto the boss. And you make sure in your equipment you have the item finger seals, and you make sure finger seals is at least at +5 because it has scaling. So make sure that's at least at a +5. That will allow you to cast magical spells. Then you make sure the finger seals is actually active, because once it's inactive, then your spells at the top will go inactive. Now, your spells at the top are 2 types of spells: magical spells and enchantment spells. The finger seal does enchantment spells, so you have to remember that as well. The other spells are magical spells, and magical spells scale on intelligence, and enchantments, I believe, scale on arcane, and both require 30. I would say if you want a significant FP, so at least a minimum of 30. If you're just going to be using FB enchantments, not FB spells, but enchantments, because this mist is considered a spell enchantment, not a spell magical spell casting, but a spell enchantment. My arcane is low. I'm not sure if this the poison mist is considered arcane, maybe it's considered faith, but my arcane is low, it's at 10. So you want your arcane to be up at 20. And if it's considered faith, you want that to be up at 20 as well. But I believe it's arcane. The spell falls under arcane, because it can't fall on intelligence, otherwise you wouldn't need the finger seal. If it was intelligence, it would be considered one of these spells. So you want that up. Then you want to press your R1 to cast the spell, which is this, to create the poison mist. Now once you do this, your FP keeps falling below. So you do that in front of Margot once. You wait for it to infect him the first time. If it doesn't affect him the first time, then you cast it a second time. Once he's infected the second time, you don't cast it again. You wait for it to keep depleting his health. And then what you do once your FP is below a certain amount, I'm gonna cast this up a couple. See, internet's about to go down. So I'll say this real fast, real quick. What you want to do, you just then want to go into your mixed bag of physics, of wondrous physics. And then in your mixed bag of wondrous physics, you drink it, and then it will, oh, I can't drink it because I don't have any more, because I use it already in battle. You drink it, you will up your FP again, for a short, for half the amount of what I just have there. And then you'll be able to cast it again. Now, once it runs out, your FP runs out again, what you want to do is you want to go into your inventory again and then select Ruin Arc. That will give you even more FP. See, I can't do it again because I just did it. So once your FP gets below the halfway point, because this is the halfway point, once you get below the halfway point, cast your Ruin Arc again, then boom, you do it again. And then you keep doing it and doing it until Margot's health falls below the halfway point, falls at 35%. And then once you fully run out of FP, you'll be able to do physical attack on them. You switch to your heavy weapon and do a straight R2 2 slashes. Now if you get off 1 slash, that's great. You dodge out of the way and do an attack. But if you can't, you block and then you do more attacks until his health is completely gone. You will have enough flasks to heal yourself. But for the wondrous physics, when you give yourself that, you have a 15% chance to continue to do it. And in order to continue to do that 15% chance to do it over and over and over again, or well, not 15% chance, 15 seconds to do it over and over and over again. I said this in the last video as well. Where's the item? You want to have the hidden tear, and you get this hidden tear by fighting a boss, and you get this as well, I believe, from also fighting a boss. So you want to have this hidden tear, and you want to have this. So you got to find those. So once you have those and you drink the wondrous physics, like here, I can't drink it now because I have none. It will restore your FP all the way up, and it'll also give you 15 seconds to repeatedly cast the ability over and over again. So basically I'm casting this, my FP is going down. For 15 seconds I'll be able to cast this and my FP won't go down. So you cast it 3 times. So those are the 2 methods in order to get more FP. You have those 2 tears attached to your wondrous physics to give yourself more FP, and then you go and you use your ruin arc. Your ruin arc should be the last thing you should use once your FP fall below a certain amount. Try to use your wondrous flask first and then your ruin arc after, and that's pretty much Margot. Margot health will fall below half, and it'll be at 35% marker. He'll still have health, which means you'll still have to brawl him, but probably half of your, or more than half of your flask, but you still probably will be able to have at least 1 or 2 flasks before he goes down. And if you run out of your last flask, he'll still go down because you'll basically be able to hit him enough times. So that's a strategy in order to beat Margot. So those are the items. And last but not least, the items you need to get: Godfrey Icon, Carrion Filigree Crest, and Radagon Sword Seal. Have these also within your talisman. So the main thing you want to have in the game first, before you fight him, is the Finger Seal, level 5 or level 7, Godfrey Icon, Carrion Filigree Crest, Radagon Sword Seal, wondrous flask that consist of both crystal tear and hidden tear. Oh, and where is it? And you want Margit's shackles, and you get this from Patches. Once you get to the beat Patches, he will show up at Scenic Isles. That's the name of the place, the name of the waypoint, Scenic Isles. And you go onto your map, and it will show you the Scenic Isles is located here. He will show up here. You get it from him at the Scenic Isles. I'll show you again, just in case I move too fast. The Scenic Isles is located in the Lunario of the Lake section, and that's right here. And you can see the map. You go out, this is the design of the map, this is where you want to be in the map, and it's located within these lake areas, and it's below here at this place. That's where you get it from Patches. And then you come outside the door. The very first thing you do before the battle is to put the shackles outside the door 3 times, run in, and then fight him the way I fight him. Put the depleted health below the halfway point, and then once you run out of FP, use the wondrous flask to restore the FP past this halfway point. Do it again, and also make sure you use your ruin arc. Once your wondrous flask ran out, do that again, and then you use your heavy weapon of whatever type you're using. Now my commander standard is 4, but I wasn't using the commander standard, I was using halberd 4. So you basically want to have your halberd or your standard or whatever you're using at least by a minimum of 4, but nothing below 4. If you fight him below 4, it will take you a long time to kill him. Typically you want to have this at least at a 4. Basically you want to do at least 200 physical damage. If you don't have it here, then the struggle will be far more. You'll be able to beat him with 100 damage, but you'll have to do a hell of a lot more slashes, which means you'll die a hell of a lot more. So if you want a standard battle, not an easy battle, but a standard battle, because it's considered easy because all you do is deplete his health using poison mist. But in order to get such item, in order to do so, you have to fight various different bosses around the world to get all those items. To get this item is easy. You just buy it at the random the round table from the bell bearers. But to get this item isn't easy. You have to fight Godric again, his first form. And to get this item, I believe, is also easy. But to get this item, Radagon, is very hard, because you have to go through an area where there are bats and invisible enemies and giant rats. So you can't fight everything, because you will die over and over and over again. You have to run through, get it, and hopefully you don't die in that area. So these two are very hard to get. This one is not so hard to get, but a little hard to get. And to get the Silurian Hidden Tear is very hard to get, because you have to fight a strong boss. An easy boss if you know exactly what to do and you follow guys online. But if you're low level, you'll be strong. So you have to fight at least 3 bosses to get the items. The Silurian Crystal Tears, I believe you have to fight a boss. Hidden Tears, you have to fight a boss. Godly items, you have to fight a boss. Radagon, you have to go to an extremely dangerous area, which is almost like fighting a boss. So it's kind of like you have to fight like 3 different bosses in order to get the items that you will need in order to beat him. And then you have to fight Patches, but Patches isn't that strong of a boss. He might be strong if you're fighting solo, but he's not that strong of a boss. So it's like you have to fight 4 different bosses. Godfrey's boss, the area, which is like fighting a boss, but you just have to run through. Then you have to fight the boss for the Silurian Tear and Crystal Tear. Then you have to fight Patches and acquire Patches after beating him as a boss. So it's various different bosses and dangerous areas you have to go through in order to get what you need, except for the Bellbearer that gives you the finger seal. So even though fighting Margot might be easy using this technique, acquiring the items in order to beat him using this technique is no picnic, and it's not a joy, and it's very tedious, and it will take you a long time. So the game is giving you an option. You either take the long time and the long road in order to acquire the items you need to beat them easy, or you could struggle to fight them. So it's up to you how you want to play the game. There's no cheesing in using the methods that people give to you. There's different methods and ways in which you could play the game. It's only cheesing if you're looking online or you're getting help from other people to carry you on the way, rather than trying to figure things out on your own. Yes, every now and again you go online when you're lost, but if you go online to find and discover everything on your own, to answer questions for everything without struggling, then that could be considered cheesing. But even so, that wouldn't be considered cheesing, because the information that they're giving to you are those that are in the game, designed to give you to help you to move forward. Cheesing is only when you're getting other people to do the job for you, or you're running past and not leveling up the proper way, and you're doing things like way too fast for your level. I guess you could consider that cheesing, but it's not actually cheesing because they have it in the game as something you could exploit. So it's not like they made a mistake. It's just like they include it in there. The only thing that aren't mistakes are kind of like glitches here for Margot. I'm not sure if that was intended for him to glitch out using those 3 shackles outside the door. I don't believe that that's the case. I believe that's a coding issue. But the shackles that you use on Margot to beat him in the battle is something that you can use against him in the battle when you're in here. Even if he's moving around, if you cast your shackle once, he falls to the ground. That opens you for at least 1, 2, and by the 3rd time he gets up, and it won't allow you to do your 3rd attack. So you cast the shackles down. Let me see if I could do it. He's not here, but you cast the shackles down, boom, Margot gets knocked to the ground, and he's on the ground for like a full 2 to 3 seconds. That allow you to do 2 heavy attacks, or 1, 2, 3, 4 multiple light attacks, and then you dodge him, and then he jumps out the way. You put your blocking on. He hits you, cast shackles again. He falls to the ground again. So they put it in the game specifically for you to limit his movement. It's not a cheese. It's something that they included in the game to limit his movement so you could beat him, because they made him specifically to be hard, and they made him to be someone that you shouldn't be able to beat if you don't use the shackles. So the shackles are in-game, meant to be used against them, but it's not a cheese to use the shackles. So I'm going to continue the story right now. I'm done saying that, and I just had to make that clear for those people who say, why are you using shackles? Well, why did they put it in the game if they didn't intend it for it to be used? Yeah, so that's a fault on the people who made the game. But it's not really. They want you to use the shackles. So if you're not using the shackles, even though the game gives it to you to use it, then you want to go hardcore. But if you go hardcore, you're not playing the game the way they want it to. You're playing the game however you want. If you say, well, I'm playing the game however they want, but then explain to me how there are certain things that aren't allowing you to play the game the way you want. For instance, this item here, this weapon here. Well, let me go to equipment. I'll show you. And I'm pretty sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. The Dragon Great Claw. If everything was meant for you to play the game the way you want, why is this piece of shit guy stronger than even bosses? Stronger than Demigod? Why is he stronger than Godfrey? Why is he stronger than Godric? He's a mini boss before you enter into fighting Godric or fighting Margot. His electricity on his damage will drains like majority of your health all the way down to like 25% the moment he slams out on the ground and hits you with that lightning attack, and the second hit completely kills you. Basically he's a two-shotter, and he's not even a mini boss. He's basically a sentry boss, like a mini boss. This guy sucks. You will once again use your poison mist on this guy, because this guy is worse than Godric. This guy is worse or equal to the amount of difficulty that is Margot. No one can tell me this guy doesn't equal to the difficulty of Margot. He is. Godric, you could figure out Godfrey, you could figure out his moves if you use your mechanics and if you keep moving around and don't get by a stomp. This guy, on the other hand, you can't do that. If you jump on your horse to try to run around and to circle around him, he'll knock you off your horse, and your horse staggers, you fell to the ground. It takes you a certain time to get back up. Boom, he slams the ground, electricity, boom, you're dead. You can't use a horse fighting this guy. But you can't stay on the ground close to him, because he'll use the electricity again on the ground, slam the ground, and electricity waves from the AoE destroys you. So you have to use range on this guy, you have to use poison on this guy, you have to use any other tactics than gunning, and hoping that you're going to succeed in your horse or with your weapons. This guy is like a mini boss, or like a boss itself, a demigod boss, but he's not even either. He's like the mini of the mini boss. This guy sucks, and I don't know why they made him this unfair. I could only think that they made him unfair so you cannot access the area to get to Godfrey and Margot yet, by locking you in. But guess what? In order to beat him, you would have to farm an insane amount of ruins. An insane amount. Even at level 200, you will not be able to beat this guy by just running and gunning. It's not going to work. You have to use tactics of stealth on him, or various other tactics of strength. Maybe if you level yourself up to 200, maybe you should do your timing. You have to be great at timing. You have to be accurate at timing. You have to this guy will take you more than an hour to beat if you're not at the level that I am at right now, at 160. It doesn't matter what your level are with this guy. This guy is designed to take time. It's designed to be unfair. You cannot progress in the game the way you want. The game is specifically designed to be played the way the people intended it to be played. So when they say don't use shackles, then you're not playing the way the people intended to play. So shackles is needed. So you can't pick one side one time and then pick another side the other time. So I'm gonna go ahead with the story. Just wanted to make that clear. If you're going to pick and choose what way a person should play, I say that you should play it the way the people intended it to be played. Then you can't all of a sudden say, "Well, don't use shackles," because then you're not saying go with the way the people are intending it to play. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put it in the game to begin with. You're contradicting yourself. I've ran into people like that before. So now I'm gonna shut up and play the story. I forgot to lower the damn volume. I should have lowered the volume of the game. I lowered the volume of my mastery volume of my actually headset, but not the volume of the game. See, this is what I should have done. But I'm not going to do that, man. I'm just gonna keep playing the game from where I left off. I'm gonna keep playing it. Forgot all about this. Should have lowered it before, but it doesn't matter. As long as it can hear what I'm saying, that's all that matters. So let me turn up my volume now to hear where it is. Yeah, it's pretty decent. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to hear my own voice on this. I'll have to check the video. If not, I'll probably do this video all over again. But now I'm gonna continue the story now. And if my yeah, and if my network goes down, I'm not worried about it at all. I had no intentions to say what I had to say beyond this point. I just wanted to make it clear on what I was saying with the last video. But I'll continue the story from where I am right now. And I'm going to follow the storyline for today. I'm not going to do exploration, so today's a little bit of story. If my network goes down, that's cool. So let me just double check my network, because I know PlayStation sometimes could shut off itself. You'll hear yourself talking, but you won't see the video. So I'm making sure I can see myself. Alright, so I can still see myself at least. Thank God. Alright, so I'll continue the story.
Hello again, old friend. Allow me a moment to converse with you. You were unable to enter the Erd Tree, no? Prevented by the mantle of barbs. The thorns are impenetrable, a husk of the Erd Tree's being that spurns all that exists without. The only way to stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord is to pass the thorns. My purpose serves to aid in that very act. So I'd like you to undertake a new journey with me to the Flame of Ruin, far above the clouds, upon the snowy mountaintops of the giants. Then I can set the Erd Tree aflame and guide you down the path to becoming Elden Lord. Shall I turn your runes to strength? Let my hand rest upon you. For but a moment, share them with me. Your thoughts, your ambitions.
Always good to see you safe. So, what do you need? Maybe I should tell you. Lately, I feel I'm on the precipice of falling into a deep, fathomless slumber. And I have an inkling it could spell trouble for you somehow. So I just wanted to get the apology out of the way beforehand, since you're so scary and all.
Greetings. Are you here for spirit tuning?
So another thing I'll mention, when it comes to spirit tuning, there's places to find it online, and you can also find it online from various different locations that people have said. But the ones that you really want, if you've gotten past the halfway point, or even if you haven't gotten past the halfway point, if you manage to run past enemies, because basically to get these, you don't really have to fight any enemy, you just have to time everything and run past enemies. It's recommended that you have high levels of health. Your HP, your vigor has to be at least at 40 if you're going to get this item, because you're going to be hit by something very huge, regardless of what you want to believe or think. It's going to happen every now and again, and there are going to be enemies on the way to stop you from progressing forward even after getting hit. So you should have a minimum of 8 flasks if you're going to go into this location, and it's you use one of the sword keys on it. And at the bottom of that location is Oleg. There are people who talk about Oleg all the time, and that he's one of the more difficult, not god summons or demigod summons, but one of the great knights. Not like a mini boss summon, or even like a mini god summon, but one of the probably the most elite and legendary summons in the game. And you know that something is legendary is because they fall under 3 categories. They fall under standard, and then they fall under special class. And the standard, you give, how does it go? Let me see if she has anything. No. Standard. Okay, so the ashes, the dogs, you give them grave, I believe it's grave, yeah. You give them grave, gold worth. So these are the regular standard ones, the ones you get like early game. And the ones that are more difficult are the ones that are below them, which are these ones, and they will require the same thing, but just more of the same thing. And you know that which one are stronger, which one are weaker, because they're organized in rows from top to bottom in this row right here. It's like there are 4 of them. There are 4 rows. There's this row, and then the next row of a set of characters below, which I believe Oleg falls under, or not Oleg. I believe other characters, other random standard summons fall under that you will get. But those are more higher tier ones. These are the youthful, the young ones at the top, the first 25% of the game, and these are the ones that you acquire when you get a little stronger, before the 50% of the game. And I believe the last two rows at the bottom are when you've either reached the 50% of the game or past the 50% of the game. You get those ones at the bottom, and those are in harder dungeons or through harder bosses. And then you go to this section right here where it doesn't say ashes, it says special ashes. So regular ashes are regular summon ashes, and there are 4 different types, and they're very difficult. There it goes from easy to medium to hard and to very difficult at the bottom to find them, or at least to get them. And then there's special types. The special types fall into 4 different categories as well. Those are even harder dungeons or harder locations. And to show that how even the special types are even not that special, because they have 4 rows. So you're thinking that you got Oleg, and Oleg is so great, but even under special type of summon category, he's not that great compared to the other ones that you're going to get. Because the mimic, the puppet summons are considered stronger than Oleg, simply because they have special tier abilities that they can do, special things that they can do, even though they use up less FP. But that's not the case. Oleg is, if you level up Oleg pretty strong, he's pretty OP. So either I'm completely wrong about the rows being part of the game that you get early, and they're separated by the line here once you get each of them, or this is just an organization of how many can be fit within the weaker class of summons to the stronger class of summons. And the weaker class of summons are, it'll say regular ashes right here at the top, right to the left of where my rune amount are placed. It'll say ashes right under spirit tuning, and then press R1 to go to the right, and it'll say special ashes. So either I'm completely wrong about each of the rows organized for stronger enemies, stronger summons as you get through the game, or it's just one big organization of all strong summons that you'll get in the game, and it really doesn't matter. So either way, anything that says ashes means weaker summons, anything that says special ashes are stronger summons. That means you've used them against strong bosses, not weak bosses. Like if you use Oleg against someone like Margit at the beginning of the game, he'll basically dominate Margit all by himself. He won't kill him off by himself. You'll still need to help him, but he'll carry you more than half the way. If you were to use Oleg, not to his maxed out, but to his quarter way, he'll carry you half the way. Like if I had used Oleg right now, like +2 Oleg against Margit at the beginning of the game, I'll be able to get Margit by half of his health and still be able to have at least 3 or 4 flasks, or no, not even 3 or 4 flasks, still be able to have 2 flasks before Oleg completely dies and his health is completely depleted. That means Margit is going to fall below the halfway point, probably have like 40% of his health before Oleg dies fighting Margit. So Margit basically is going to carry you to beat Margit, the first boss you encounter in the game, well past half of his health. And it's up to you to be able to beat Margit for the second half of his health. Or in fact, Oleg might be able to carry you even way past half of his health against Margit if you level Oleg at least by +2. So, but he'll eventually die because you're not supposed to actually beat a boss with an actual summon itself unless you completely max out that summon. But Oleg is that great that he could carry you to more than half of a boss's health. That's if you're playing good. If you're playing shit, he's only going to carry to you about half, and that's it. But either way, you'll be able to die less having someone like Oleg. is probably the best summon that you could get right now. At even early game, you could get him early game if you run past everything, if you level up just your health, not mind, not intelligence, not strength, not dexterity, just your health and endurance, just those two things. If you get vigor up to 40 and you get endurance up to, I believe, 20, you could be able to do it, because endurance allow you to resist damage more, not just damage on your health, but damage overall more, and allow you to recover faster. So if you get your endurance up to 20 and your vigor up to 40, or not even, if you're able to get your vigor up to 20 when you first start early game and your endurance up to 20, that's your 40 right there. And then you'll be able to try it out within that dungeon at the beginning of the game when you first start. If you realize you still can't do it with 20 vigor and 20 endurance, then your vigor needs to be at 40. Because I know for a fact you should be able to do it with an endurance of 20 and a vigor of 40. If you still can't do it with an endurance of 20 and a vigor of 40, then just up your endurance to a 30. And then if you can't do it at 30, you find out you're difficult to do it at 30, then up your endurance to a 35. Because my endurance was at a 30 when I got Oleg. My vigor was at 40 when I got Oleg. My endurance was 30 and my vigor was at 40 when I got Oleg. So I know that people can do it. And even if I'm completely wrong, even if my vigor was at 50, I know for a fact that my vigor, my endurance was at 30. So if it's 50 and 30, you'll be able to get it with a breeze. But if you're at 40, my recommendation is to get your vigor at 40 and your endurance at 20. If you can't do it at 40 and 20, then try to do your endurance up to at least a 30. You don't have to worry about mind, you don't have to worry about strength, you don't have to worry about dexterity, you don't have to worry about intelligence, faith, or arcane. Get your vigor up to at least 40 and your endurance up to at least a 20. And if you can't still not succeed, get your endurance up to at least a 30 with a 40. And then grab that item, because it's mostly about dodge rolling, blocking, using your shields, and then getting to your end game and using your last flask to heal yourself before grabbing the item. If you grab the item and then you get killed, as soon as you grab the item, that's fine, you still get the item. And I believe it's, I'm not even sure. No, I don't think there's a boss. I don't think you have to fight a boss to get it. But if you do have to fight a boss to get it, make sure you at least have 2 health potions, 2 flasks before you fight a boss. That's why I said it's very important to have at least a minimum of 4 flasks. 2 of the flasks is for replenishing your health twice if you get hit by the huge boulder or the huge saw. And then if you get hit by it again, you'll require to use additional flask to recover your health again. And if you get hit by enemies on the way, you're required to use that flask once again, which means that will leave you at 1 flask for you to fight a boss if there's a boss, which is not good. But if you're fast enough and if you're quick enough, because the boss is, I believe the boss is not that strong. If I'm not even sure if there's a boss. It's been a while. I mean, it hasn't been that long, but I don't remember there being a boss at the end. I remember you just running and grabbing the item. I could be wrong. Best thing to do is to have 5 flasks, just in case. 5 flasks, just in case. Because if there is a boss, you want to have at least 2 flasks on your person to grab it there. If there is not a boss, then a minimum of 5 flasks is required. A minimum. If anyone says not a minimum, you need more flasks, then you have to get up your vigor to at least a 40. Then you have to get up your endurance to at least a 30. If you're not going to have more flasks. If you're going to have less flasks, you have to have more vigor. You have to have more endurance. Or if not, have your vigor up to 50, like I have my vigor up to 50, and endurance up to 35. If you're going to have less flasks. If you're going to have 5 or less flasks, you have to have your vigor up to 40 and your endurance up to 30. Or if you're going to have your vigor up to 50 and your endurance up to 35, you have to have 4 flasks. Either way, my suggestion is to have a minimum of 5 flasks with either a vigor of 50 or 35 or a vigor of 40 and 35. That's my safe bet for you to get that without dying over and over again. Don't worry about the other stats. Use those other stats for when you're in combat. This is simply about running, dodging, blocking attacks, and getting to the item, and then taking the item before dying, or getting to the location, fighting the boss with 2 remaining flasks on person before killing him, grabbing the item on his dead body, and then exit out. Minimum 5 flasks with a vigor of 40 or 35, or a vigor of 50 or 35, or a vigor of 50 or 35, or a vigor of 40 and 30 with a minimum of 5 flasks. That's how you do that. And then you get Oleg. Every other thing attaining, every other special items or ashes that you attain from summons thereafter won't feel as difficult. So that's what you got to do. You'll know it when you see it because it's the first sword key dungeon at the very beginning of the game when you first start the game. You won't be able to do it at your low level. If you're level 10 or 20, well, maybe not 20, but if you're level 10 or below, you probably won't be able to do it at all. You have to get up your vigor up to 40. And getting your vigor up to 40 will probably increase your actually level to at least if you're just focusing on vigor and endurance. Get your vigor up to your level to at least, I believe, 50 or 60. If it's just vigor and endurance that you just started off the game, it's just vigor and endurance, then your level will probably be at 50 or 60 if you're just increasing vigor and endurance to 50 and 35 or 40 and 30. So that's my safe guess with regards to that. A minimum of you'll probably hit 50. If you're at 50, that's a safe bet at a level in order to get through that dungeon area with a vigor of 40 and 30 or vigor of 50 and 35 with 5 flasks minimum. So I'm sure there are people who are pros who will be able to do it less, but guess what? Those pros probably New Game Plus it. So they're probably still carrying the same stat amount even though they're back down to 0, or they still understand the actual layout of the area where you never played the game before and just going into the dungeon. So do understand that if you want to get that item, you should look at guides online how to get the item from a professional point of view, because if you're below level 20 or 10 and you're trying to get it, you're not going to get it. You're going to get one shot by that thing, and that will suck. So you got to time it correctly, or you got to level up your vigor to where it needs to get to in order to do that. So that's all I got to say on that. Oleg is the shit, pretty much. You get Oleg, he'll be able to carry you from the beginning of the game to the midpoint of the game. Just Oleg himself.
I took you for dead. Now lay out your arms then.
The Earth Tree has spurned you. The fingers remain still, shaken by this turn of events. They are busy consulting the greater will. When they are finished, the fingers will again offer their guidance. But thousands, if not tens of thousands, of moons must first pass. No matter for me. But you, how will you ever manage to wait? My, oh my. Heavens forbid. That is not the domain of mere men. The burning of the Earth Tree is the first cardinal sin. And you say you seek the power of the Rune of Death too? The Rune of Death goes by two names. The other is Destined Death. The forbidden shadow plucked from the Golden Order upon its creation. Unleashing the rune now would be unthinkable. The fingers would never permit it. Nor would the greater will. But here we are. The fingers dormant, severing our link to the greater will. The realm and all life in ruins. Impossible events transpire beyond the ken of the fingers. Who is to say that the cardinal sin must be cardinal forever? Go on. Finish the job. Take the course you deem most worthy. You must find kindling. Only the smoldering flame in the great forge of the giants on the highest peak in the lands between can burn the Earth Tree. But special kindling is required to reignite the flame. For the flame to burn the Earth Tree, a sacrifice is needed. Of one who envisions the flame and can lead you to the Rune of Death. You must find kindling. Only the smoldering flame in the great forge of the giants on the highest peak in the special for the flame and can lead you to the... Now go forth. Let the words of the fingers guide you.
You
If you're heading to the Forge of the Flame of Ruin, in the snowy mountaintops of the Giants, you'll need to find the Grand Lift of Rold, beyond the Forbidden Region. But go if you would. Take no heed of cardinal sin. The Two Fingers lost their purpose a long, long time ago. There are 4 more demigods yet to be located. Mikola of the Halig Tree, the Unalloyed, his twin, Melania, the undefeated swordswoman, Luna Princess Rani, daughter to Renala, and the one only known as the Lord of Blood. Rani is said to have cast aside her great rune, so here at the Hold, we seek the whereabouts of the remaining 3 shard bearers. If you should learn anything of these matters, I'll trade your findings for a hidden treasure or a long-lost right, known only to me. We both desire to stand before the Elden Ring and become Elden Lord. As such, I hope we are compelled to work together. Find the Albinoric woman. She hides in a cave to the west of the Laskia ruins, which jut from the mist-shrouded lake of Liurnia. She knows the location of the medallion's counterpart, I'm sure.
No. Wait. You have felt the curse. I can smell it on you. Pox, yet tender. Apparently my seedbed is ripe and waiting. 'Twas a brief respite, I must say. Go and unshackle my corporeal flesh, trapped in the sewer jail below the capital. I can kill you and defile your corpse. Then the pox will truly be your own. Go and unshackle trapped in this. I can kill you. Then the pox. Go and unshackle my corporeal flesh, trapped in the sewer jail below the capital. I can kill you. Back already, no matter. Back already, no matter.
Alright, so this is a progression story thing. I'm not sure if anyone knows about this already, but I've stumbled onto this little situation. So it doesn't matter if you get Smithing Stone 5 or you get Smithing Stone 6 or you get more Smithing Stone 3 or 4. It will always say you have 0, even if you buy Smithing Stone 3 or 4. And that is because at a certain point, I guess in the story, you're not supposed to level up. It will always say additional items required, but under the items required, it only says Smithing Stone 3. Which, as you can see, she's selling Smithing Stones 3, so that's not the issue. The only issue I could think that might be the case is that you're not allowed to level up your finger beyond a certain point in the game, because either they put it there as a personal block that allow you to not progress further, otherwise you'll too OP certain enemies where you are, and it's supposed to only be used on certain enemies moving forward. So that's a point I'm going to take off from the game, because one, there's no indication that that's supposed to happen, even though I purchased more Smithing Stones, and two, if I have to go out of the game to find it, if that's the case, then, or someone has to tell me, then that means that's another thing I have to take from the game. But I'm not going to remove another point. I already believe I minus a point from the game for going outside the game to find certain things that doesn't make sense, that will never be explained to you, and it's not really part of story, or it's not part of mission, or it's not something you can explore. It's just something you either know or you don't know. So I'm assuming that this has something to do with the story, and if I'm wrong, there's nothing to explain that it's not, because I've just purchased a certain amount of Smithing Stone. So that's a point I'll take off from the game. So I know this game is not going to bring win Game of the Year. It might win a lot of awards, and I'll be shocked if it does win the Game of the Year. But it's one of the greatest games of all times. Probably won't win Game of the Year due to the fact there's a lot of things that is not explained in the game, and you have to go outside of the game to learn about it, or people to tell you. And that's the issue that he had from way back in the days, and they have not fixed to this day. And it really isn't part of a nostalgia and anything whatsoever at all. Those are mechanical things that you're supposed to include in the game to begin with. That has nothing to do with difficulty. Scaling your weapons and understanding how to manage your weapons based on intelligence and scaling and crits and what you need to get out is part of the game. Understanding how to mix them together so you could get certain effects on enemies is part of the game. Strength level is part of the game. Equipping certain items is part of the game. Learning how to use consumables is part of the game. Ash of War is part of the game. Talking to the right people to get the right response is part of the game, or you won't get the right response and you get different type of endings. That's also part of the game. That's part of the freedom of the game. Things that not telling you how much Smithing Stones you're supposed to put with regards to something, and then you acquire Smithing Stones and you realize you can't use it, and you have to guess that maybe it's part of the story, but you don't know for sure that's part of the story, and there's no indication within the game when you first start it that it's part of the story. That is not something that's part of the game. That's something that's a personal decision you decide to go with, and they have not fixed. And there's no indication that there's a right or wrong about it, but it falls more on the line of wrong because you don't know what's going on. You're lost in a sense, and you just have to, from a certain point of view, just go with the punches in order than just leveling up what you've acquired to do so. So the game forces you to not level up even though you want to, so it has a personal limitation forcing you to not progress further past a certain point. So that's the limitation of the game. It's not freedom completely of explorations in many different aspects. It does have this limitation. So anyone says this game allows you to do things freely at every point in turn, how it play however you want, that's not true. And that's another example. You just physically saw me buy Smithing Stones, and I can't leveling up this weapon, even though it requires Smithing Stone 3, and even though this finger lady does have Smithing Stone 3. So it's either something I missed and I'm not seeing, but it's not explained in the game what it is that I'm not seeing. And even if I run around to try to find out what it is I'm not seeing by speaking to certain people, I still won't know what that something is, because it's hidden. is information that's hidden from you, and you gotta find the hidden thing. And the hidden thing becomes tedious because the game is already long in and of itself. So to make it even more tedious, they decide to hide things within it that has nothing to do with the strength and difficulty of the game or exploration. So that's kind of freaking stupid. So yeah, it doesn't deserve to be 10 out of 10 game at the moment. It doesn't deserve to win any wars at the moment. I haven't finished the game, but I'm nearing the halfway point of the game. Once I get to the halfway point of the game, I can fully say whether at the halfway point of the game that the game deserves to win Game of the Year or not. But as it's standing, it's not looking good whatsoever. It's looking great. It's in the 9.5 category as standards go, slightly above Horizon if you're comparing it to any game, but not better than, I guess, not better than Bloodbourne. You know, and Bloodbourne never won Game of the Year, so that should tell you something. I think the fanboys are really trying to up this to win Game of the Year, simply because it's done better than the past Soul game, as with regards to inclusions and adapting the game for people who have complained about certain things going wrong. So it's done better than those games. But here's the thing, it was supposed to do better than those games, because that's what progression means. As you create more games and you make new games, you figure out new ways to make it more appealing to everyone else. So that's not silencing out people bitching. That's something you're supposed to do anyway as you make more games. When Doom Eternal came out, it's supposed to have done things better than Doom 2016 they got wrong. That's the whole point of progression. You're supposed to improve your game. You can't say a game is Game of the Year simply because it now does things that it was supposed to do from the very beginning. It's just cleaning up what you did from the very beginning that you now have into your game. So yeah, I don't think people understand that concept, but the game is great. The game is in the mid-9s, not in the high 9s, not that bullshit. The game is mid-9s, and it will fall from those mid-9s in my opinion, and fall into the low 9s if I find even more crazy stuff. Like this goddamn guy who has this hammer. Like a lot of people who fought this guy said they pretty much were going to give up on the game completely. And these were from Souls players. People who've played Souls. People who were veterans of the game. People who got annoyed and put their game down, but they trucked through it. They trucked through it, and they kept moving and they kept moving and kept fighting him simply because they're vets of the game. They thought it was bullshit, and if a Souls fanboy thought it was bullshit, then that means there's something wrong there. You just can't dismiss it aside simply because that's the way it is. So yeah, that in and of itself should tell you something about the game. I don't fall for the BS of people who try to hardcore defend it when the obvious is staring you right in the face. Because they're going to be singing their prejudice and biases from the beginning, and they're going to be dudes that says everyone is biased against everything, and everyone's, sure we all are, because we're all human and we all have sin. But here's the thing, in business world or in anything that you're doing things from a business aspect, your bias is going to still be there, but your bias has to fall below the 75% margin. You can still have 25% remaining of your bias, but you have to have 75% of non-bias there. And if you have 75% of non-bias, you're still in the good. And that's what the fanboys are not going to tell you. If you have majority of non-bias there, you're still in the good. If you have minority of bias there, you're still in the good. Because no one is perfect. But everyone is supposed to conduct themselves professionally and have more than 75% or 75% non-bias. So when a game gets a 10 out of 10, I know that that's not being unbiased. There's imbalance in the bias perspective. If there's 75% unbiased and 25% biased, then I could see that game being a 9 out of 10, because they're considered the 25% amount of their bias and the 75% amount of their non-bias. So yes, everyone is going to be biased, and certain people are right. No one's ever perfectly right about being biased. But if you take the aspects of removing yourself from the equation and then putting yourself into the equation thereafter, or you hire someone who doesn't give a shit about games and then rate the games based on what their experience are, and then you consider that factor if that person said this game sucks, and then you factor in everything that they're saying that the game sucks, and then you factor in your opinion of why they're wrong, and if the balance between why they're wrong and the balance of why they're right, the imbalance between the pros and the cons are too close together, like I said in the previous video, if your pros and cons are too close together, then the game isn't perfect and isn't the bullshit and it's fanboy nonsense. So that's how you do correct, accurate criticism. You either get someone to totally shit on the game, and then you contradict their total shitting on the game by putting up points, and then you balance off the tally of everything they're talking about shitting on the game to everything you talk about positive. And if the scaling is too close together of you and that person, like if it's that 25%, if they're 25% closer to you, then that means that they're right. But if they're 50% further from you, or 50% from where you are, then that means that it's 50% your way and 50% their way, which means you're probably right. So that's how you do it. If you can't do it from a human perspective, you have to do it from a mathematical perspective, and then remove yourself from the equation and only include yourself at the end. So that's how you do bias. You have to have 75% or more of opinions that are not prejudiced or not biased, and you have to include, since you are going to be biased regardless, because it's like destroying yourself if you're not completely unbiased. It's like you're a complete machine and you're not a machine. You have to at least have 25% of non-bias. I mean off bias, or at least 20% off bias. So it has to be 80 and 20 or 75 and 25. But that's how you got to do it. The 25% of your bias is completely you shitting on the game, or completely you supporting the game, and the unbiased has to be 75% of you not factoring yourself whatsoever at all into the equation. And then you're probably saying, well, that doesn't make sense. Why should I do it that way? Because that's the only safe way. The only safe way for you to take yourself out of the thing, out of what you are as a person, and see it from everyone else's eyes. And when you see it from everyone else's eyes, doing the 75% majority from that point of view and only 25% from your point of view, you then see things from what other people are seeing. And then once you see it from what other people are seeing, then you could go 75% your way and 25% their way. You have to find the middle ground. You have to start first from an outside point of view, and then work yourself way in. And then once yourself is in, you then start from you being the majority factor, and then work themselves into the equation. And then you compare notes between both of them, and then you see it that way. You never start 100% from yourself and then factor in what other people say thereafter. And you never factor in what they're saying after 100%, and then you factor a little bit into what you're saying. You take the mathematical point of view. You keep yourself out first, put 75% in and 25% what you're saying in, on both scaling, both from you're the bad guy trying to shit on the game, or you're the good guy trying to uplift the game. You got to start it that way. That's how you do proper biased and unbiased all at the same time. Because if you only do biased and unbiased at the same time, at the halfway mark, your opinion will always be halfway. If you're halfway shitting on the game and halfway praising the game, your opinion will always fall right in between the middle ground, and you haven't really achieved anything. You will still be at a static standpoint, and you really won't be taking a side. You will still be Sweden. You'll still be neutral. So a side must be taken, and the side that must be taken must be done from a mathematical side, which doesn't take sides, which is very mechanical. Which, if you're the bad guy, the Lucifer type, if you're the good guy, the God type, or if you don't want to consider it from a religious point of view, the law type, you're criminal or you're the cop. You know, you can't go half and half, because the criminal will always say, well, I don't see your point of view, and the cop will always say, I don't see your point of view. You have to take it from the math point of view. That has nothing to do with different type of elements of hierarchy or elements in society that follows a hierarchy. You have to take it from math, and math is element. Math and science are element point of view, so you have to look at it from an element point of view. So that's how you do that. So I'll proceed through the story, and I just have to state that, because there are going to be people who are fanboys, and there are going to be people who are going to totally shit on the game. These people exist just to contradict others, so be aware of that. I know this game right now is not going to win Game of the Year based on what I'm seeing, but if it does win Game of the Year based on what I'm seeing now, I'll be shocked. It has to be something towards the end of the game that would make it Game of the Year. As it's standing right now, I don't feel it whatsoever. You know, I feel other games like Horizon is more in the lead right now where I am, as a game as a total, but not as a game as an exploration and boss fight. This game will knock that game out the water when it comes to exploration and boss fight. So, but I'm saying the game as an overall value to everyone, from an everyone aspect, not just fans aspect or just die-hard gamers aspect. From an everyone aspect, right now Horizon is still better as an overall aspect towards everyone. But from an individual aspect, this game is better than that game so far. But things don't work according to just individual aspects. You have to factor in everything else. So I'll see before I reach the end of the game, or even the halfway mark, where this game stands. So far it's badass. So far it's doing what it's supposed to do. But I'm not just going to claim that a game is great simply because it's great. You have to consider everything. And if you're just thinking people are just bullshitting, you know, they're not being truthful to themselves, then you're seeing it from the point of view from a higher arc. You're not seeing it from the point of view of the math perspective. And I don't do people who see things from not the math perspective. Like, fuck that bullshit. You gotta go and drop in a hole and die off, man. Because then you're taking sides. You're taking God's side or you're taking the devil's side. You ain't looking at the logic side. I don't do that nonsense. The only time you take one of those sides or one of those type of hierarchy is when there's a huge imbalance in either direction. So that's if you believe in that stuff. But if you don't believe in that stuff, you believe in the law point of view, it falls the same thing. If there's a huge imbalance in both perspectives, cops are being too copy, criminals are being too criminally. Someone has to step in. So imbalance is bad in either direction, and it's toxic in either direction. So that said, I'm continuing the story. Just had to make sure that's completely clear. That's how I judge games. I don't put myself into equation until thereafter. I purposely shit on the game, and I purposely then make sure I uplift the game to destroy what I try to shit on, simply to prove my own self wrong. That's what I did for Horizon. That's what I did for Doom. That's what I did for Until Dawn. That's what I did for House of Ashes. That's what I'm doing here. And people say, well, you do you. It's like, the moment someone tells me you do you and I love this game, I already put you in the biased position, because you're definitely being selective. And people being selective don't have the right to actually freaking judge something from a logical point of view, because you're not doing things from a logical. You're doing things from a, I'm with this group of people, one to my side type of point of view. And people are doing that right now in our government. And they're still wrong, but they're still going to be able to do it. A nice explanation to this is our history. Civil War. I don't like you taking my slaves away. I'm pissed off about it. So I'm going to rally all my people together. And we're going to fight against you northern boys, because you're ruining our way of life. They're not completely wrong. You are ruining their way of life, because they lived it that way for their children and their children's children. But at the same time, I doubt they would have liked being put on fields themselves and forcing themselves, being forced to actually labor for people they hate, if they were in that situation. So you gotta see it for what it is, you know. Like, hey man, if you really want slaves that much, wait for the future to come where you could make slaves out of robots. Robots don't give a shit. But then that's a story for another day. There are plenty of movies that makes stories about stuff like that, when people became sympathizers towards robots and then gave them AI consciousness, and then all of a sudden robots became aware, self-aware, and turned into something else. Yeah, so human beings are funny that way. We sometimes seem to fail to forget that we're not gods, and even when it doesn't get time to that, we'll eventually try to be gods in some way or form against something. Our history has shown it, through Roman times to now, that we've all tried to play gods in some type of way, shape, or form. And in video games, it's the same way, man. I don't know how to say this. I'm just gonna keep playing, because I don't need to explain this to fanboys. Like, look at our human history. That should answer everything for you. So I gotta take on the fire giant in order to move forward to get. So that's what I got to do now. Probably won't get there, but yeah, I probably won't get to the Spitting Stone 5 and 6 today, and because I'm just gonna do exploration after this. But I just wanted to continue the story and state what I had to say about Margaret and about certain specific things with regards to the game, as well as summons and smithing stones and the progression and where the game stands right now. I'm still in the mid 9s, might fall off. Probably like 9.4 right now for where I am. It was at 9.5, but probably at 9.4 right where I am right now. I can't go through